Sixx Sense with Nikki Sixx.
Nikki Sixx, it is Sixx Sense. I'm here with Jen. Shaun Morgan, Seether is hanging out with us. What's going on?
Not much, man. How you doing, bro?
Can you give me one of your coffees? I mean,
yes.
No, okay.
Are you sure?
No.
You can, I'm willing to share, man.
I'll be surprised if you don't finish both of those by the end of this.
Oh, I'll finish them.
Okay.
The only reason why I can't do it, the only reason why this taking this long is because they're at a certain sort of like
fire degrees,
elevated temperature that even I can't handle at this point.
I have to drink my coffee cold so I can drink more of it.
Yeah, that's what I do.
Yeah.
I like that.
You do. Yeah.
You're on the road right now. You actually stopped mid-tour to come in.
Yeah, we were in San Francisco last night, and we were in Anaheim tonight, and then we're going to
wherever
Arizona tomorrow.
Oh, good. Look at him.
I'm not. That's as far. And then I know we have 2 days of driving, and then we have St. Louis, and then we have Idaho, and then we go home. So. I usually know the last week I'll know pretty well.
Yeah.
Because then it's
a countdown.
So it's about a 7. This is about a 7-week run, right?
And then we have a month off, and then we have another 6 or 7 weeks, and then we have 2 weeks off, and we go to Europe and do all the
I've gotten to the place where like I enjoy planning some off time. Where like I'm sure earlier in both of our careers, like we remember just touring.
Yeah.
You'd be like, okay, I'll be back in like 6 months or 9 months or a year, but. It's nice that you're going to get to go home for a little bit and recharge. I think it's better for the fans too.
Well, I mean, usually it was a case of I didn't want to be home. You know, so you just like 9 or 10, 11 months out of the year, it was great because it was something else to do rather than be home.
Sure.
I'm getting older, man. I mean, you know, I'm not 21 anymore, and none of us can keep up that pace anymore. And we've even adjusted the touring schedule to be, for the most part, 2 days on, 1 day off, and so we're still doing 5 or 6 shows a week on some any given week, right?
Sure.
Yeah, so it becomes pretty brutal. But I think the worst really are not even the show days. It's those days off when you have 16-hour bus rides.
Yeah.
That sucks, man. We've had one of those. So we haven't had too many of those, but I think we have a couple coming up next week, or this week, actually.
Yeah.
So,
well, I mean, I enjoyed those bus rides when I was doing drugs. But they get very long. Like after about an hour into it, you're like, okay, well, that's
Here we
great.
are.
This is great. What are we going to do now?
Yeah. I mean, I can see that being enjoyable.
Yeah.
So
well, you've been away from drugs for 2 years now.
Yeah. I still drink every once in a while, but I've cleaned up everything else, and it was
hard for you, or had you come to a place where you just said, I think I'm done with this part?
Oh man, I had a pretty rock bottom. I tried to kill myself twice in Europe on the bus. I was like, what is it? Middle of 2015, around about August.
What got you there?
I don't know, man. Just a bunch of things, like just, sometimes there's no explanation for it. You just don't know what's wrong with you.
Sure.
So
I've been there.
Yeah. And it was, I luckily the stuff I took wasn't very powerful because I took one full bottle of one sort of anti-inflammatory, I think it turned out to be. I thought it was a painkiller. And then the other one that I did later on was the same thing, but it was also useless. So I kind of felt like I should go back to the doctor and, punch him for selling me sugar pills.
Yes. Yeah.
But so I mean,
but it gives you a moment to reflect. You're like, okay, I survived that. Like, what do I want out of life? Because you put out so many great albums, and you have kids, and I know you have a young one on the way.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things that I've battled my whole life, man. It's just you can be on the top of the world and still somehow be pissed off about something or be sad.
It's a weird side of me that believes that a little bit of that drives my songwriting. Mm-hmm. I feel that, I don't know, I feel it kind of like a burn in my stomach. I'll wake up and I'll be like, it's going to be that day. Yeah. And I go right to my guitar, and it starts to come, and it gives you some relief.
Yeah. That's what I need as well. I write stuff definitely to relieve stress, pain, fear, anger, all of those. But
yeah. Well, your songwriting is amazing.
Oh, thanks, man.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I love it.
Wind up told me for 13 years that I sucked.
Which couldn't have helped anything at all.
Yeah,
I mean,
that was
my God.
And it was this whole thing, and anyway, so I spent. We're on a new label now. We're with Concord, which is great. And so, but I spent the first 13 years living in this country. I was told by the label how much I sucked at songwriting. So that was fun. Eventually, you go, well, if I can't write a song, what do I have left, right?
Yeah.
So then it's like just knock out my foundations, and then now I've got nothing left. So.
Yeah. Well, the new album's fantastic. The songs, I mean, it's gone number one.
Thanks, man. Yeah.
That's got to feel good.
After such a
new
long
label,
break,
Yeah.
new management,
Yes.
new life.
Currently sitting over there.
You know, you got a new baby coming. You got a number one song.
Yeah.
I mean, this is great.
Hopefully,
You're
I can-
hanging out with me, and I'm sorry, that's the downside. You have one bad thing.
Actually, I think it's kind of cool. Yeah, and you know, so currently I feel pretty good. You know, so hopefully I can ride this for a little while. It's you know, it's we understand as well that like you got to appreciate it all while it's going well, right? Because it can go the other way quite quickly if you get it wrong. So. Yeah, and so
what's your thoughts on a lot of people that say, you know, like records don't sell as much, so like, you know, rock music's kind of dying out. I mean, I've been out there doing I did shows with you last summer, and there was 50, 80,000 people there. Didn't feel that way to me. You've got a number one song.
I think that rock's always been the little engine that could. It's just there was I think for a little while there was a little bit of sameness, kind of
I felt
safeness, I think.
Mm-hmm. Well, MTV, as great as it was, also was a downfall because managers and labels were going, oh, we need more of that.
Yeah.
And then you just ended up with too much of it.
Right.
It's happened with every genre, of course.
Well, and honestly, the only medium of the media that isn't supporting rock music is TV. And
yeah, it's very hard to get booked on TV
right,
shows.
and let's be honest, unless you Dave Grohl, you don't get on to any of those shows. You know,
Sure.
it's almost like the Foo Fighters is the only rock band out there when it comes to like the Grammys or the Billboard or whatever, right? Which is great to be the house band, I guess. But
every time I've called to get on any of the TV shows, whether it's Motley or 6 a.m., they always say they're in blackout. And I'm like, I have a calendar. It's like, you've been in blackout for 12 months. Can you just say we don't want your type here anymore? I'm okay with that.
Yeah, right.
We don't want to be with you anyway.
Right. I'm going to be a part of this anyway.
We don't like
but
you either.
I mean, there's a lot of great albums that are coming out. I mean, there's the new Thrice album I thought was awesome.
Yes.
The Highly Suspect I think is a great band.
Yep.
Then you got the new Foo Fighters single is Heavy again, which is great. It's like I was expecting another sort of, well, I didn't know what to expect actually. And there's you know, I think there's a return to bands just being pissed for the sake of being pissed now, rather than trying to be melodic and get on the radio, and you know what I mean. I mean, and then there's a lot of bands that just don't care about melody at all, man, which is kind of a bummer. But
yeah,
I think it's always been around. And I just, like I said, I think radio's always supported. And I mean, sure, radio took a bit of a hit, but like you said, you know, you watch these festivals. There's like 10s, 15, 20. I mean, Rock on the Range was what, 50, 60,000 people.
Yeah.
Carolina Rebellion, Rocklahoma, all of those. They're all well attended, and like, people still want to go to a show, you know. But it's what I find interesting is when you play a show and somebody comes like, "This is my first show I've ever been to," and they're like in their 30s, and I'm like, "What kept you, man?" Like, not just our band, but any band in general that they waited to be in their mid 30s to go to a rock show. I was like,
yeah, because it used to be. Well,
weird.
for me, I was like 14, 15, and there. How old were you when you went to your first concert, Jen?
I was 12.
12.
Yeah, I was Def Leppard.
that's a good one for a 12-year-old girl.
Did you go by yourself?
Yeah, I just rolled in by myself. Hey, guys.
Did you smoke weed?
No, it was me and my dad. And I remember smelling weed. And I was like, what is that? It smells like dirt. Because, you know, it was terrible weed back then.
Yeah, of course.
So that was my first show.
What was your first concert?
I saw a band called Mango Groove. It's the least cool story in the whole history of the world.
We can make it cool.
Right?
No, my parents took me to the show, and they were kind of like an Afro pop kind of band, and it was the singer was called Claire Johnson. She was this hot blonde girl, and she was wearing a tight black dress and high heels. So
It works.
I was like, I don't know, 10, 11, and I thought she was hot. I don't remember anything else about the experience. But,
She was just hot.
But yeah, I mean, it wasn't anything cool. Like, I mean, there's some guys like,
But
my
just
first show was Pantera. I'm like, oh, that's awesome.
The idea that like something you love, someone could like do it on a stage. When I was in Idaho, I was just a kid in Jerome, Idaho, population 4,000 people.
Oh, wow.
And there was this, the basketball auditorium, whatever it was, and some band. It was like, flyers everywhere. Some band was coming. So it was like early 70s.
Yeah.
And I remember going to see this band, and they had like 2 amps and drums on the floor and something. They were singing through something. I didn't know what it was. But like one guy had a big afro, right? And one guy had this long stringy hair, and the drummer would like look weird. I just remember being like, it's not unreachable.
Yeah.
There it was. I was in Jerome, Idaho. The only thing around there was a tractor. But there was somebody playing music, Once you feel that, you're like, oh, you can do it too.
Yeah, I mean, that's like when you play in that first band, and I was just a singer because I couldn't play an instrument at the time. But like my first band, I think I was 12 or 13, and that sense of accomplishment and that freedom that you feel when it's you and 4 other friends making this horrendous noise, but it sounds cool to you, man.
Yeah, it sure does.
A buddy of mine sent me a tape of us. We started writing our own songs when we were 13 or 14, and he sent me a tape and I count in this one song. My voice hasn't even broken yet, man. It's this little high-pitched kid. And,
1, 2,
and the music, the music's terrible. But I mean, man, we loved it so much, So, I mean, and there was nothing like that. That's kind of, I guess maybe on this album, I was trying to recapture that sort of feeling. Remember when you first start playing for fun and it's like you're in a garage and maybe you going through the guitarist's dad weed stash or you sharing a 6-pack because, when you're 14, 6 beers will get 4 of you hammered, man.
Yeah.
Drink them really fast.
Yeah. And I kind of missed that real like
that innocence,
love, but also the love for it and the passion for it. Because I was sort of starting to burn out on music in general, man.
Yeah.
So it's nice.
That's not unusual. The industry will burn you out, and the touring will burn you out. And all this other stuff. Sometimes it's like this rebirth.
I was considering a change in careers. Even I was just like, I'm going to step so far away from music for a while, but you can't, man. I mean, I'm 38. It's not old, but it's certainly too old to sort of say, well, now I've all this other stuff that I've worked for. I'm just going to throw it out the window.
Could be my child.
No, he couldn't.
Yes, he could, because if I was 20 and I had a child,
it's Shaun.
Yeah, it's Shaun.
That's me. Hey, Dad.
That's awesome.
So aside from getting into too much depth, do you feel like what's happening around the world right now is inspiring you at all as a musician?
Are you talking about what? There's a couple things that on the social front. That's inspiring me to hate people in general. You're talking about like the violence front on the
violence, the presidency, whatever it may be.
You know what? I just sit back and I'm watching the world starting to burn, man, and it's kind of it's.
Do you feel the need to write about it? Because Nikki kind of comments every once in a while about how it's a decent time for music because you guys have a lot to say.
Well, I mean, the album came out just before that all went down on the presidency, for example. But it's certainly what I see in the society is the desperation of kids just to be famous and not have any kind of content or offer anything to society, which to me is ridiculous. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I see it especially with the sort of middle to young, maybe later on in their teens. So maybe the teenagers of today, or specifically the ones that appear to be more concerned. Like, I mean, for example, the thing that makes me the most sick in the most recent memory is that Cash Me Outside chick that's now got 10 million Instagram followers, and she's
on tour.
She's going to make $1 million this year from endorsements, and she's a piece of trash, man. Like, she's a piece of crap, and the world has embraced her, and they like hang on her every word, and it just drives me insane. Dude.
Yeah,
right.
That one of my friends posted something today, and that about somebody. And I clicked on the link, and it was somebody like that. I can't remember who it was. It wasn't that person. They had like 3 million followers and a really nice tit job.
Yeah.
And I was like, after a while, I was like, that's it. I just remember just sitting there staring at my bass neck for ever and listening to T-Rex records and trying to rip it off or whatever. And then I'm like, well, that's it. You can just get a tit job and you got 3 million followers. Or you can buy them. I just think it's weird.
Put some stuff in your butt and you get more millions of followers. Look for example, the most ironic and ridiculous thing is Kylie Jenner sells lip products to a generation of kids. She didn't have lips until a few months back or a year or two ago. She didn't have any goddamn lips. Now she's selling lip products.
and doing good.
Doing
Better
real
than
good,
us
man.
together,
Very
son.
good.
Dude, exactly. I mean,
We're starting a new band called Father and Son. First single's called Fuck You.
I'm in, man. I mean, Kim Kardashian's making 50, 55, 60 million a year. Just on Instagram endorsements and I mean, talking engagement. Speaking, who the fuck is paying to listen to her speak about anything, to be honest?
Well, that's a reason why rock music is important, because all this other stuff's always happening. It's always changing as long as I can remember. And then we're kind of like this steadfast, consistent thing. Whether it's selling more or less, it's still there.
Right.
New bands coming. The old dogs are still in there, like churning out riffs and just keep going. And it's important, I wrote something the other day, and it was actually really a feel-good song because I'm so sick of the negativity.
Yeah.
I was like, I need to write something that feels like first, second Van Halen album.
Yeah.
It's just like, wow, this is like actually a good idea because it felt good to play it.
Yeah.
And, I see that, we all get drugged down in it and it affects our music and our moods. And then, there's a rebellion and,
Right.
it's important. We are a reflection of what's going on in the world for sure, whether we know it or not.
If we pay attention to the rest of the world, There's also there's that sort of there's a couple of those bands out there that, I mean, no, you can only sing about strip clubs and blow so many times, right? In champagne rooms before you want to punch yourself in the eyeballs.
Man.
Right. So that's like, I mean, I don't know. I'm fucking.
Have you seen Rammstein?
Band. I love Rammstein.
Yeah.
I mean, then they had the one show, they had the one tour where I guess they had human bodies in, like, is this a rumor or is it real? It would be great if it was real. Supposedly they were going to put real human bodies in formaldehyde on these pedestals, and they were going to stand on those pedestals on stage and play it, which is legal in Germany because you're allowed to eat dead people in Germany.
Yeah,
you don't
Germans,
Right, I mean those damn Germans, man.
It's a whole other world. I love that idea.
Yeah,
our band. That's what we're gonna do. But we can use how Kiss partnered up with Hello Kitty. We can have Hello Kitties in formaldehyde.
That's good.
Yeah, we're gonna
fire.
This thing's we're gonna have 400 million followers.
It's gonna be good.
It's gonna be massive. We'll have to buy them, then we'll be broke.
Right.
But,
we just have to become the most offensive band ever.
Let's talk about the Rise Above Fest. Fifth annual is a pretty big deal. That's pretty rad.
It's grown from. Yeah, it was a little idea we had 7 years ago. We did one in New Hampshire, and it was it did it right. It was we threw it together in about a month, and then we missed a year because the venue wanted money, and it was the whole concept of charity, I guess, was lost on the guy.
Right.
So we found the new venue in Bengal, and we went down there for the first year, and it was really good. I mean, I think the first year we did about 8,000 people, and it was a good turnout. The next year we did 10, and then I think the third year we started getting close to sell out, and certainly last year we sold it out pretty quickly. So now it's grown to a 2-day festival. So this year we've got Korn headlining and Shinedown headlining on the second day.
And everybody donates their time and
most people donate some time or maybe something that they've signed or whatever, so we can auction that stuff off as well. And I think last year we did about $100,000 for SAVE, which is the Suicide Awareness Voices of Education. Because my brother committed suicide 10 years ago, almost. And I wanted to do something that was kind of going to turn that negative thing into something positive, like you were just talking about the music, right? So we set up the festival, and it's basically just there to raise awareness, and we fly out vets, and we show them a good time, we get them drunk, and we let them gamble, and we let them hang out backstage with everyone, and they have a great time. So it's trying to give something back and trying to do something positive as far as, the suicide thing is becoming really, really scary, man. Not just amongst vets, amongst kids and everything. I mean, kids as young as 8, from what I've heard, 9. I mean, how sad do you have to be that you're 8, 9 years old and you're hanging yourself?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's mind-blowing. And also, a lot of older people too.
Right.
Like in their 70s, 80s, they get to this place where the kids have moved on. They're just kind of alone. They find not a reason to be around. It's horrible to think about that,
Yeah.
How do you raise awareness at the festival itself?
Well, we basically, there's a bunch of flyers, and there's a bunch of booths that are dealing with different aspects of it. And there's a military booth, and there's Save puts up a big display, and they make sure that everyone knows that that this is what the whole festival's about, and we do a bunch of press before it as well. And
That's cool.
yeah, and it's officially, and it has been, but it's the largest gathering in the world for suicide awareness. So we're like these pioneering activists, and it's kind of cool.
It's
man.
fantastic. Have you ever had any kind of feedback from anybody that said, your messages like really reached me and I was on the brink?
Yeah, and you hear those stories a lot, man, and so that's kind of a heavy mantle to wear, though. It's like I'm glad that I'm helping, but by the same token, it's some of those stories can be really brutal to listen to. Like we've met, especially at this festival, because it's so in the forefront of the conversation that everyone you meet, that's the first thing they'll tell you is their experience, and so you spend the whole day now,
immersed
2 days
in that,
and somebody else is kind of, and in this collective misery and this pain that everyone shares, and it's getting to the point now where I don't think anybody knows anybody that hasn't been touched by suicide in some way. You know what I mean? And that's becoming crazy. That's like, that shouldn't be how we live, man. But by the same token, I'm not in the game to try and. I'm not arrogant enough to think that I can prevent anyone from doing that. I think if the mind has been set, and for some people that's just the way it's going to go. But really, what it is perhaps instead of maybe there's a pause button, or there's a speak to somebody. Maybe somebody can change your mind.
I would imagine there's more pause buttons than you know.
Yeah. And that's the whole idea, is just to sort of give kids people in general. I mean, not only kids.
It's a good conversation to have. Anytime you have a conversation about something that's like real like that. Most people aren't talking about it. They might hear the conversation and go, man, it's like somebody else gets it, or there's some tools here for me. Yeah. So I think it's fantastic. It's
great.
I mean,
I was suicidal as a kid, man. I was, at one point I had a gun to my head, and then I picked up a guitar instead and wrote a song, right? And then, so that was always my creative outlet, and everyone has some way of getting. There needs to be an outlet. It's like it's just this. It's like this.
And medication is I think a positive thing. For some people.
I think for the right people, and I think correctly used, sure. I mean, I think it's difficult. Like my brother was on Ritalin, and the way the States works is if you cross a state line, then suddenly your prescription becomes, I guess not as official as it was in the state that you got it in, for example. So as my brother traveled across the States, because he worked for us for a long time, and then he worked for some other bands, but eventually it became so difficult to get his prescription because they kept giving him a hard time, so he just stopped taking it. And I think that was also critical, that for the last 6 months, his brain was just like losing it because he was on strong Ritalin. Right. You can't adjust brain chemistry to such a degree and then suddenly hope that if you're cold turkey, it's going to be great, right?
Sure.
So I agree. Medication's great. I mean, I've been on some stuff myself, and I mean, I know, there's very few people that I know that aren't.
Right.
But that's just also. I mean, that's also if it's used correctly, I think it's cool. I just when I was a kid, it was fashionable to be on Prozac, man. Like I was 16 years old. My parents sent me to a therapist because they didn't know what to do with me. And she just slapped a Prozac prescription on me, man, and it's like, and I just became a zombie. It was like, it's like you just live in this square wavelength of like there's no ups, there's no downs.
Yeah. There's got to be a balance in there.
Yeah, sure. I mean that was 22 years ago, which is horrible to say. but it's
just wait, it gets worse.
But I think it's I definitely agree with if medications used correctly can help, like especially if there's no other solutions.
Yeah, for sure. Man, 7th album. It's amazing.
Yeah, I would never have thought I would still be here.
Yeah.
If you had told me, 20 years ago I'd be sitting talking to you in 2017 with an album that was, a single that was number one, I would have told you you're out of your mind.
Yeah. That's what's cool about music. You just kind of keep doing it, and you have these highs and lows, but it feels like, and from what I'm hearing from you, is like almost like feels like it could be a first album for you.
I think so, man. I've just rediscovered, like I said, I rediscovered the passion to play music because I'd lost it for a while, and I really didn't. I had to battle with thinking about coming back to this or not, because after that last tour, I sort of I tried to kill myself. Then we went to Kuwait for the USO experience, and of course in Kuwait you have to dry out. You have no choice. And then from then I just stayed dry, and it was your perspective on life completely changes because now you're awake, right? And the shells hath fallen from mine eyes, and everything becomes clear. Like you can see, okay, well, hang on. I've been spending 12 years being screwed over by that person, and I had no idea. Well, this doesn't make any sense. How have I let this happen for 12, 13 years?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I went home and I did nothing for a little while, and then picked up a guitar and started writing music, and writing it from a completely sober perspective was really interesting.
Yeah,
I've never
it's
done that
amazing.
before. I used to sit in my house in Venice Beach, man, and I used to have this routine. I used to have 2 or 3 bottles of red wine, and I knew a guy that was just down the street, so I'd have like 3 or 4 8 balls, and I was like, cool, we got 3 days, let's do this, and you sit there and you're like cranking out music, which whether it was good or bad, I still don't know.
Yeah.
But it was that was the routine, and it's interesting when you don't have that, and you go in there and sometimes you write some, I don't try and write every day. I don't feel like I need to, but sometimes you go in there and you're just sort of screwing around and something cool comes out and you write a whole song. Other days, maybe a riff or 2 and then 2 or 3 riffs you can play with later on.
Yeah, if you don't put too much pressure on yourself, it just kind of happens. When you're like really putting the pressure on yourself, or you having a lot of self-doubt, you start to get crippled.
Well, and I felt like I had nothing to lose this time. I felt like either it works and I keep doing this, or it doesn't work and I get what I want to do and go do something else for a living. So
yeah, that's our band, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, just checking. Just checking. So it'd be bad if I wish the album flopped,
Yes,
so that
that
we
would be
could,
bad.
so
Please
we
don't
could
do
do a
that.
band. He's like, yeah, well, I hope the radio show goes under too, dude. Well, you know what? I hope
How about you just wait
the
till
band
his
just
cycle ends?
broke up. By the way,
Oh,
Yeah.
well, that was quick.
So-
I was like,
canceled.
I'm never going on that show.
That was
again.
a fun run.
Those guys need to be on Prozac, which I was for a second. But a guy got on Prozac and I got a girl pregnant, so I guess my dick worked. Then I had
good.
child support.
Thanks, Prozac.
Yeah.
Life's confusing. It's just so
You should
hard.
be in the commercial, when they read really fast at the end. Could cause pregnancy and child support.
May cause pregnancy and
Fuck your
child
life.
support.
Yeah.
She will try to take half of everything,
Right.
including your songwriting, when she wasn't even born when you wrote that song.
Yeah.
Okay. I
And
get
it's
it.
oh, sorry.
No,
Is that
okay.
resentment?
No.
I have a little
Not
resentment.
at all.
Oh man, I'm like you. I can't let stuff go.
I love it. I have a backpack full of it and shit carrying it around. This is just resentment from today. This is resentment I have towards Shaun. Just from today. Yeah, I got a whole closet full of backpacks.
I'm the same, man. I if someone does, I have this unfortunate ability. If you've known somebody even for 20 years and they stab you in the back or do something, I can literally cut them out of my life
Oh
in
my
a
God.
second.
This band is meant to be.
She's like, that's not healthy that I do
No, it's
that.
not. But I love that. Wow, it's good and it's bad. The fact that you can literally stop thinking about somebody completely ever again.
That's a skill.
right. It's a survival skill, I think,
Yeah.
for the most part.
Yeah, I once went to counseling with an ex, and they were all fired up and stuff. And I said, do you think that I even ever think about you? And the therapist looked at me, and the person looked at me. I go, because I moved on
Yeah.
a long time ago. I'm only here because you're complaining. If you weren't complaining, or if you died, I would be happy. That didn't go well. I had to go back 3 more times because I said that. That cost me $700. Hey, Shaun, dude, thanks so much for being on.
Oh, thanks for having me. man. This is
Congratulations
cool.
on everything.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Killer.
Nikki Sixx and Jen on the Sixx Sense.